Hey, what's up? Good morning, afternoon, or evening, good people, wherever you are and however we're together. Thank you for being here. I'm Dave, and this is Dave's Head. So, what's in my head? Duh. March Madness. Duh. March Madness. Duh. Can I say it again? Um, First of all, my most favorite time of the year, in case you had no idea, March Madness. You got the Masters coming up. You got even the Preakness coming up. You got spring training already going, so you got actual baseball, real baseball happening soon. You got NBA playoffs. You got all these things coming up, but March Madness is for me the gateway to the madness of all the sports coming. And then by the time you blink, you got NFL coming back, which makes it perfect. But so far, we've had exactly one weekend of March Madness, and it's been ridiculously crazy. We've had 7 upsets so far already this March Madness, the first weekend. Now, I'm only going to talk about 2. Number 15, Princeton upsetting number 2, Arizona. Think about this. Princeton runs their offense. It's the backdoor cuts. It's all these things, right? Old school, right? They're not going to overwhelm you with size and all that stuff. They're going to just cut you to death. Cut. Backdoor this, backdoor that. That's the way they play. You gotta have that endurance in your legs. Well, Princeton didn't lead that game until just a little bit over 2 minutes to go in the game. Meaning Arizona led by little, led by a lot, led by little, led by a lot, led by little. Princeton takes the lead with about 2 minutes to go. And if my memory serves me correctly, I think Arizona's offense just like shit the bed after that. Missed like their last 7 or 8 or 9 shots, whatever it was. And Princeton upsets Arizona. By the way, Princeton was ranked number 15 in case I didn't say that. Arizona was ranked number 2. It's the classic 15-2 upset that seems to be happening a lot. Fun fact for you, I was actually at the game when Georgetown lost to a Florida school, and I can't remember the name of them right now, but they were actually playing in Philadelphia in that opening weekend. My friend and I, we tailgated in the parking lot because, of course, we did. And then we went in just as the game was coming up about 5 minutes ago. When I say that place was a madhouse with every shot they went down, because Georgetown was number 2. This is probably like the last season that Georgetown was kind of Georgetown. And I'm using air quotes for those that aren't watching. And so I might have been Florida Atlantic or whoever it was, some small school in Florida. And they beat them. They beat Georgetown. I believe they were ranked number 2, and I believe that Florida school was ranked 15. That would have been, to me, the best upset of the weekend until Furman upset Virginia. And Furman was ranked number 13. Virginia's number 4. It doesn't seem as bad, but it's actually, to me, worse. It felt worse, especially the way the game ended. And to me, March Madness is about buzzer beaters, sharpshooters going head to head. You get the classic 2 players, 1 on each side. They're balling out. One guy's making a 3, another one's coming down making a 3, another one's coming down making a jumper, other one's making a driving layup. They're just going back and forth. That type of March Madness stuff. Then you have those memorable moments. You have the late foul. You have I think his name was Tyson Edney or Ty Edney, whatever his name was, went full court in like 3 point something seconds 15 years ago, probably at least. But that type of one shining moment you reach for. Not going to do it. By the way, the Luther Vandross version, best version of them all. One shining moment. But to me, that's what March Madness is about. It's about the memories that these young men and women are creating. And for a lot of them, and this is a conversation I had a couple weeks ago, a lot of these sports athletes, basketball athletes, March Madness participants, are playing basketball on an organized, skilled team for the last time. And so a lot of people look at March Madness and go, well, why are they crying? It's just a game. You don't understand the preparation it's taken to get to that point. This is 18, 19, 20, 21, 25, 26. There was a 26-year-old playing in one of the games the other day. However many years of 100 jumpers a day, 200 free throws a day, doing suicides. And if you don't know what suicides are, look it up. Doing all these things, practicing your reverse, practicing with both hands, practicing your dribble, practicing your shuffling your feet for defense and all these things. All these years, year after year after year after year. AU tournaments, this tournament, that tournament, that tournament. And then you finally get to the NCAAs. You're finally a senior. Your team is good. It's at least one of the top 64 in the country, or top 32, or top 16, or top 8, or top 4, or one of the top 2 with a chance to win a championship. And you lose what likely is your last collegiate game. Tell me you're not going to shed a tear. And so I never understand when people look at whether it be collegiate or non-professional or professional athletes and say it's just a game. You have no idea what goes into their craft. And I always say craft, their craft behind the scenes, the weightlifting, the running, the sprinting, the swimming, because swimming's become a great endurance builder as well. But these games have been amazing. You might be asking yourself, if you're watching on YouTube or Spotify video, why I'm wearing a Roll Tide Roll shirt with a football logo. I have to look and see which way I have to point. A football logo if we're talking about March Madness. Well, one, Alabama is the overall number 1 seed, and they're just kicking ass right now. So this is my support for Roll Tide. It's always going to be Roll Tide. Number 2, while I do support Alabama basketball for this tournament, if you know me at all, you know I'm a Syracuse basketball fan, and you know the reason why. I'm not going to get to the reason why. You have to really know me to know that story. But Alabama basketball apparel and paraphernalia I do not own. So I only really started following and supporting them when, what's his name, Avery Johnson was a coach a couple years ago. You know, Southern Avery Johnson, that Southern Avery Johnson, former San Antonio Spurs Avery Johnson. But so I don't own a Bama basketball gear, but I'm going to support them by putting on my Roll Tide Roll shirt and doing this podcast with it. That's what I'm doing. But I'm just, I'm excited for next weekend. Next weekend, I get to spend with my college buddies. You know, we had Eric Healy, who's behind me over here to the, I can't point the right way. Why can't I point the right way? That way. He's right behind me in this picture here. I just screwed that all up. We're going to try to point one more time. Nope, we can't. We still can't do it. There we go. Right there, over my shoulder. That's his face. We had him on season 1. He's one of my great best friends from college. Him and my other friend Scratch, we're going to get together. They came down to my house last year. So I'm going up to Eric's house this year. We're going to just sit back, have some beers, drink, catch up, and watch some good old college basketball. That's our plan for Saturday. Looking forward to it, though. I mean, it's wide open. I mean, outside of Alabama, I got to be honest with you. I don't know who else could have a shot. But there's so many teams who could possibly win. But this is what March Madness is all about. The second thing that's on my mind is something a little less enjoyable. The clown show continues. And I'm hopeful that by the time this episode drops, that this Oscar-worthy victim performance by Trump has come to fruition. So if you missed it, he tweeted or truthed it or whatever it's called on his platform to all his cult followers that he supposedly will be getting arrested this week. Now, one can only hope. But if he does, there's threats of violence, civil war. Like literally it's from I'll leave and move out of the country to civil war is coming, get strapped up. It's just bananas how cultish this cult is. But suppose he's about to get arrested or indicted and arrested for the crimes in believe New York State with the what's her name, Stormy Daniels situation where his lawyer paid her hush money and signed an NDA and just way too much drama. But anyway, he literally is Oscar worthy with his victimage. It's always somebody coming after him, witch hunting him. No, dude, you break laws and you think you're above them. That's what it's about. If I did those things, if you did those things, if you're watching or listening, whoever is watching or listening, if you did those things that he's done, we'd be behind bars. Period, point blank. We don't have the money and all that and the resources and the cult followers to apply pressure or convince judges or buy our way flat out of it. I mean, think about it. This all started because he was cheating on his wife. He paid off Stormy Daniels Now he claims he doesn't know. But he paid off Stormy Daniels, who he claims, I wouldn't sleep with her. He paid off Stormy Daniels in order to keep her from coming out during the campaign. And the ironic thing is, it's almost comical. The ironic thing is, this is the same guy who, and forgive me, said that it was okay to grab them by their pussy. Said that he could shoot somebody in the middle of Park Avenue, I think it was, and people would still vote for him. Mocked a physically disabled reporter. Called all Mexicans criminals. I mean, I can go on and on. This is just off the top of my head. And literally, they still elected him. And so all the ironic thing is, he might have wasted all this money, all this time, all this money he's now paying to lawyers. The embarrassment, although he's probably not embarrassed, but the embarrassment of getting, please, baby Jesus, let him get perp walked. I just want to see him get perp walked. That'd be so hilarious, but they probably won't. But all the embarrassment of, this whole arrest and Stormy Daniels thing, all of this, and he probably could have just let her come out, and his cult followers would have cared not at all. All the things he did, they still elected him. You think they're going to care about some Stormy Daniels or you cheating on your wife? Are you kidding me? You wasted all this money, all this time, all these resources, and they would have still voted for you in 2016. And now you're getting indicted over it. That's the ironic and funny part of it. But it's par for the course for the drama victim queen. I mean, literally the Oscar should go to him every year. Just like change the face of the Oscar. Remember that picture that photographer took when he was coming off of Air Force One that one time, where he just looked beaten down, just disheveled, and like he was literally melting into the ground. Put that picture, that head on the Oscar, and give that out every year. The Trumpy, the Oscar goes to. The victim of the year goes to. That's what you should do. I'll be so glad we don't have to talk about him anymore. Seriously. What's in My Head is brought to you in part by Diggum Movers, your safe and swift moving company. An A+ rated, one-stop shop, licensed and insured moving company, providing local and long-distance services on the move. For more information, visit their website at www.diggummovers.com or call 1-888-77-DIGGUM. That's 1-888-773-4436. The last thing that's on my mind is something I'm extremely happy about. Uncle duties. So this past week, a little more than weekend, so started really on a Thursday. A very good friend of mine, best friend of mine, and his wife had a business trip down in Florida. He asked me probably months ago, 3-4 months ago, if I could babysit my godson and his younger brother this weekend. Said sure. And then I remembered that, I had this event on Sunday, I had this event on Saturday, I had this other event on Thursday. And so, but it all worked out perfectly fine. But I got to do the daddy thing, right? It kind of felt like the daddy thing, right? So Thursday I'm at soccer practice. So I take my godson's younger brother to soccer practice, and he's running around. And by the way, the funny thing is these, I don't know how these instructors have so much control at times over these kids. And there are times they just have no control at all. Like they're like, stop, you stop, you stop. Just have no control over what these children are doing. Luckily, they're in a fenced-in area, so they're not just running in the street wild. But they're trying to teach these two different groups, very, very young age, how to play soccer, which is kind of cool. It's kind of cool. It gets them burning calories, gets them running around. They'll be tired by the time it's time for bedtime. And then, so that was Thursday, soccer practice, and then Friday, I got my godson and his brother again, and I took them to go eat, get some food. I've never seen two young boys empty this thing had to be 3/4 full. Regular old, squeeze bottle of ketchup. Gone. Destroyed. Obliterated. I lied to you not. It was doing that thing by the time we were done. I've never seen so much ketchup put onto one small bite of a fry. Not the entire fry. A bite of a fry. Listen, when I was younger, I used to eat ketchup on my fries. Kind of grew out of it. I started liking just plain fries. I don't put anything on my fries. I don't even like cheese on my fries, really. I love a good peanut oil or whatever, great seasoning, plain old fry. I love Five Guys. I love Five Guys fries. I love Wendy's fries. I love what's the other one? Checkers. I love Checkers fries. Don't put ketchup on any of them. But they literally put massive amounts of ketchup on their plates. And when I'm talking about scooping onto the fry and biting it and then scooping the next piece and biting it, I've never seen that much ketchup eaten in my life. The most amazing thing to me. And then we go to the movies and I go see Shazam. I couldn't tell you the rest of the title, but Shazam 2, I'm going to call it. I didn't see Shazam 1, but it was kind of cool, kind of cute. Not going to lie, it was very slow for me in the beginning. Like the beginning, like the second quarter of it was kind of like interesting in the beginning, the first quarter, and then it got really slow. To the point where my godson's like, can I get my iPad? Like, he even said that to me. And I said, no, just keep watching. And then like the whole second half, love the pace, love the action. But that like little bit right before the middle, the crest of the movie, the climax of the movie, I was ready to fall asleep. But it was a good movie. It was a nice kids movie. Nice, storyline, all that stuff. I don't know if it's a Marvel or what's the other one? I can't even think of the League. DC Comics. I can't remember which one it was, whether Marvel or DC. I think it was Marvel. Pretty sure it's Marvel. But so we did that, and then Saturday took him to what is equivalent of a Dave and Buster's, not far from me. I can't remember the name of it right now. But took him to the equivalent of that, and oh my god, just chasing these kids around, loading up paying cards because they have all these cards already, and they were playing some game where they got cards out the machine, and it just was just nuts. Finally got them to sit down, and of course, what did they want? Nuggets and fries. And what did they want? Squeezing the ketchup. I'm like, oh my god, you guys have consumed so many tomatoes in the last 24 hours. It's beyond me. And then back to my place that night. The plan was to watch movies, and I got some popcorn. They love popcorn. Got pizza, and I got the wrong pizza. By the way, for the first time in my life, I ordered or wanted to get a tomato pie, and the place that I ordered from had tomato pizza. And so when I said tomato pie, I guess in his head he heard tomato pizza. And so literally a pizza with tomatoes and garlic came to my house. I'm not going to say it was nasty. It was very different. But I might call them back and say, hey, if somebody says they want a tomato pie, confirm with them that they don't want what you guys got. Because apparently they have two different tomato pizzas. One with, I think, is spinach and ricotta or something like that. Never had a tomato pie. I would never order it again. It was okay. It was edible. I was going to eat it. What am I going to do? Send it back? But yeah, not the greatest thing in the world. But the last thing about this is it's amazing how much energy that children that young have. 10 and 6, right? Of course they have. They're like never-ending energizer batteries. But it's amazing how fast they process things too. Like they can pick up on people and places and feelings around. They can pick up, obviously, I've never babysat them before. They've never picked up on my mannerisms before. I've never had to discipline them before, correct them before, steer them in the right direction, or prevent them from going in the wrong direction before. They picked up pretty quickly my voice inflections. Hey, we're having a good time. Ha ha ha. You need to stop what you're doing. Stop hitting your brother. Sit down. Stop moving. Stop. They picked up on all that stuff pretty fast. And by the time it was time to go, they pretty much, I could just say or do or point or look. It was kind of cool. Not going to lie. Because I remember, my grandmother's look. I remember my mother's look, my father's look. My father didn't really have a look. He said, don't mess up and we ain't got no problems. But I remember those looks, right? We all talk about parents with the looks. And I gave them a look. I was like a whole parent. Like it's kind of cool. Just saying. I think I'm almost ready. I need a little more practice, I'm going to say. I told them anytime you want, I'm game. So I'll get some more practice and then, got to work on it. But we'll see. I'm pretty sure Uncle Dave was said about 250 times though. It was Uncle Dave, Uncle Dave, Uncle Dave, Uncle Dave. Look at this. Uncle Dave, can we do this? Uncle Dave, can I? Uncle Dave, can I? Uncle Dave. It's like, stop calling me. But It was a great time. I loved every minute of it. It's amazing to me. I can't, having one at a time is probably interesting. You have one you got to keep track of. Having two who kind of do whatever they want, and I've never seen a kid who just walks into you all the time. Like they have no sense of just walking straight. They just their guidance is when they hit your leg. Okay, I need to turn a little left. Okay, I hit this leg again. Let me turn a little left. Just squirrel everything. Not caring about where they're walking. But it was cool. It was fun. Like I said, Uncle Dave had a great time with the boys. Looking forward to the next time that we do it. But the amazing thing is nobody was injured. Um, and that's honestly that's kind of the start point. That's where it stops. Nobody was injured. Everybody was good going home. We had a great time. Lots of laughs. Played Uno. My nephew beat us in Uno, but I beat him in chess. He challenged me in chess. So hey, he learned his lesson. He learned today not to mess with me in chess. But that's what's in my head. Dent Neurological Institute is one of the largest neurology practices in the U.S. that provides, quote, superior clinical care, advanced diagnostic services, clinical research, and education. They posted an article on their website, quote, called Break the Stigma, Mental Health in Sports is Just as Essential as Physical Health. And I'm going to butcher his last name, probably, we'll see. Michael Asbach, looks like Asbach, a doctorally trained psychiatric physician assistant at Dent Behavioral Health, answered some critical questions in this article about mental health in sports. I'm going to cover a couple of them. The first one, how big of a role does mental health play in sports? Huge question right out the bat, right? He says for most participating in sports will have a beneficial influence on mental health, reduce the risk of depression and anxiety, but the stress and high pressure of competition can negatively influence mental health. Makes sense, especially for athletes who perform at a very high level. Now, I'm not sure why they distinguish between high level versus not high level. I think if you got pressure on you, pressure on you, especially when it comes to sports. But, they're the experts, so we're going to defer to them. The second one, when do we know we have reached our limits? Something that a lot of my friends will tell me I just simply don't know. Watch for signs of mental distress, anxiety, depression, fatigue, feelings of dread associated with the practice. Not practice, but the practice. A dislike for the sport that they used to enjoy. Makes sense. You start to regret the thing that's actually putting the pressure on your life. The third question, what are the next steps to have a successful mental recovery? One of the best things about it is to take a step back, they say. And I love what they did with an analogy. If you have a twisted ankle, you don't keep playing on it. You give it a rest, you let it heal. They're saying the same thing as far as recovering mentally. Take a break, step away from the sport. If you have an off season, even better. But if you have time between games, skip a practice or don't go to the gym. Like I used to wake up in the morning, have breakfast, go to the gym, go to classes, go to the gym, go to practice, go to the gym, maybe take one of those times off and skip gym. But I'm talking about this too, and I'll get to the reason why in a second. The last question I'll talk about is what are the next steps to have successful mental recovery? Because remember, it's not just about taking a break, it's actually being productive and healing during that break. And they say one of the best things that is, besides taking a step back, is still try to practice and perform every day, but at a lower level, whether it's just mentally going through what you normally do in your routine. Interesting, because that's not exactly taking a step back, but okay, whatever. But I'm talking about this, and a beautiful thing about this time, what I talked about in my opening segment, is my favorite time of the year is March Madness. And I talk about some of the upsets, and I want to dive into one of the two I said that was actually my top upset, which is Furman beating Virginia. And so I watched the last minute and a half, probably 10 minutes of real time of the end of that game. And there's one particular player when I didn't realize it the other day when I watched it. I didn't realize it when I watched the highlights. But when I did the research for this episode, I realized the same player had negative impact on the results of that game for Virginia. Same player got fouled, and I'll go through really quickly. Got fouled, missed the first free throw, made the second. So instead of a 5-point game, it's a 4-point game, which if you know basketball, that changes the strategy for the team. So Furman goes down, they try to get a quick bucket, get fouled, they make both their free throws. Now it's a 2-point game again instead of a 3-point game. They inbound the ball. This player gets the ball, gets trapped in the corner, tries an over-the-shoulder throw, throws it to half court. The other team gets it, passes it to a player, makes a 3-pointer to give Furman a 1-point lead. The player with the best shot to defend that 3-pointer, that very same player that missed the free throws, that turned the ball over, now is the closest defender that could stop the three, couldn't go in. Think about the mental anguish that player was going through in that moment. You saw him kind of slumped over, grabbing his knees in the locker room, on the bus, that night in the hotel room, probably couldn't sleep. If you're an athlete, if you played any type of competitive sports, and you're very competitive, because it's one thing to play competitive sports, another thing to really want to win every time you step foot on your field or whatever the surface is. You replay, and I know I do this still, you replay moments in the games you play in your head over and over again. Imagine the last minute and a half of that game being all literally about you and the mistakes you made. That's some mental stress. That's, that's pressure that player is going to constantly keep putting on himself over and over and over again. But mental health is a problem in sports, and we're going to get into it now because the reason I'm talking about this is I want to bring in my guest for this episode, Marc Paisant. A little bit about him. He's a mental health advocate, certified personal trainer, and the creator host of the podcast Relatively Normal, where he shares his experiences with ADHD, anxiety, and depression, as well as advocates for therapy and counseling. He's also host of the 6amrun.com podcast. We're going to get into both of those, by the way. As a former collegiate athlete, which I realized I discovered with soccer, Marc uses physical fitness to assist with his mental health. Marc, welcome to Dave's Head. How's it going?
It is going great. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
I'm looking forward too. So as we kind of get closer to the recording time with my guests, I do my research. I look up profiles. I do all types of research. I don't do background check. I never do that, but I do research. And looking at your journey, we're gonna talk about it in a second. And I'm actually jumping ahead because I usually like to have my guests introduce themselves because I'm so excited to kind of have this conversation because there's a lot in this rubber band ball about you that I would kind of want to dive into. So let me take a step back, like I talked about in my little monologue. Let me take a step back and let me have you introduce yourself. Tell the people who you are, what you do, and what you're about.
Sure. Well, thank you very much. Again, my name is Marc Paisant, located right outside of Atlanta, Georgia. I am a former collegiate athlete. I played soccer at Clemson. I was a two-sport athlete in high school, basketball and soccer. And, soccer was my number one and still is my number one sport. Host of two podcasts, like you mentioned, husband, father, perpetual learner, always trying to bring joy and sunshine to the world, even though the news headlines and CNN and everybody tries to bring us down. I'm trying to be that smile in the corner to let people know that everything's going to be all right. And I'm a coach, a youth soccer coach. Used to be a youth basketball coach. Now I coach my daughters and soccer and try to live my life the best way I can each day.
Gotcha. Love the HBCU hat. I believe that's a Howard hat.
Yeah, yes, it is.
So yeah, it won't make the episode. It's something that I believe before I started recording, or before we're going on the air. But I talked about looking at my phone and seeing an alert. Speaking about headlines and depression, with the news, and I think I saw 3 more students got shot in Philly, which is just it's numbing at this point. Yes. But it's still every time you're like, oh come on, come on. And at this point, there seems to be this huge epidemic. I don't know how it is in Atlanta, but where there seems to be a lot of high school students getting shot and killed suddenly.
Yeah, in the South, Georgia and Florida, it's unfortunate. I hate to say it like this, but it has become the new norm. I don't know, new is the right word, but it definitely has become the norm. And my kids go to elementary school, and they came home. I remember the first time they came home and said they did a drill. And I was like, fire drill, tornado drill, what kind of drill? And it turned out to be,
active shooter.
Yeah, exactly. And like you want, as a father, you kind of want to wish they didn't have to go through that, but at the same time, you're a little happy that they're being proactive about it. But the way our kids I don't like how they're having to raise themselves like this. But this is what we have to deal with now.
Yeah, we're going to talk about mental health. I mean, this kind of lends right to that topic. I mean, think about, and I swear I'm not trying to self-promote, but I gave a speech yesterday at a scholarship fundraiser, and I talked about how this generation that's graduating now, next year, the year before, have different difficulties they face than my 90s, going to school. I mean, we had the war on drugs, we had, gang situations, that type of stuff. We weren't scared to go to school. Our parents weren't terrified for us to go to school. And I feel like that fear, that mental anguish is out there because you don't know if today's the day somebody's going to walk into a school and shoot it up. Right. It's just that's a relevancy for what's going on today.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, people getting, jumped for their J's, and now I went to a school and like every other kid has on J's now. It's like that's nothing to anybody anymore. And it's like people used to get jumped for their starter jackets, or now it's like kids aren't even afraid of kids anymore. It's what's gonna come into the school. And I mean, I make sure I kiss my girls each night and let them know how much I love them and how much I'm going to protect them. But, once they get on that bus, like they become property of the county. And I just hope and pray that they're good that day.
Yeah, for the record, I had the Payless versions of the Jays, so nobody jumped me.
I never had Jays until I was an adult. So there you go.
Yeah. I literally, I think I brought this up on my podcast last season. I literally have never owned a pair of Jordans until I got some golf shoes that were Jordans last year. And I put my foot in them, and it felt like I put my foot in pillows, and I said, I need to have a conversation with my parents because what have you been denying me all these years? The quality of the shoe is amazing. But, yeah, we're off the rails. It's too early for us. All right. Let's get into the actual Q&A that I planned. So you were a soccer athlete. We talked about this. And by the way, fun fact, I actually played goalie in 6th grade. I gave up 1 goal the entire season. And that was it. There was no playoffs. It was one of those 6th grade leagues. Yeah, that's my soccer story. But how did you go from maintaining that performative shape to play soccer? Because I haven't, seen a soccer player weighing over $180, to gaining over 100 pounds. Talk about that journey and talk about how that happened.
You're absolutely right. And so my brother and I played soccer from, I want to say 6 years old until I was a senior in college. So from that time, and we played multiple seasons, multiple teams. My brother and I were pretty successful at soccer, state championships, all that good stuff. Both got scholarships for it. And once I stopped playing, there was no one there to make me go to practice, and there was no one there to set out the plan, and there was no nutrition plan, and there was no, 2-a-days in the off season. There was none of that. And I figured, well, I have this metabolism. It's going to last forever, right? And no, it does not. Anybody young listening, that metabolism will catch up to you. So I decided I kept continuing to eat the thousands of calories a day like I did playing because I would burn them. And then I figured, well, they still keep making my size of clothes, so I should be good. And, it got to a point where every day waking up, ankles were swollen, back hurt. And it got to a point, like, I looked in the mirror, looked on the scale, I was like, hey, what happened? Like, where did you go? And it happens to a bunch of us, and a lot of us are really quick just to blame ourselves and really quick to be down on ourselves and say, this is how it's going to be. And I did that for over 10 years, to be honest with you. And finally it got to a point where, I told myself that I started believing in myself again. And it was a long journey and involved a few surgeries because of injury. But finally I bounced back and figured it out.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I played football in college, played semi-pro for a little bit. I'm still playing recreationally, even though I've tried to retire 4 times now. But one thing I've always talked about, my friends will tell you, I have this innate fear of having in my head what's called a dad bod. And so that's always been my motivation. I've pretty much followed my college football regimen as strictly as I can. I love to eat and cook too much, but so I'm not, the 8-9% body fat, whatever I was playing college football, but I basically followed it. And I always say playing still keeps me in shape because I always, again, this mental fear. As soon as I stop playing, I'm just going to go nuts, lose shape and all that stuff. What was your low point during this? And what options did you give yourself when you got to that low point, whether you recognize it then or didn't?
Physically, and I'm with you when it comes to one, trying to retire out of amateur sports, because I've been pulled on to basketball teams and now an adult soccer team, which I'm still hurting, and we played yesterday. So, but when I saw a few of my college teammates, I went to a game and it was up where I was living, and it was a Clemson game, and I saw a bunch of them. I saw that they had kept in shape, and for me to be, my nickname, hey, big man, hey, and it wasn't said, in a sarcastic way, like we do with small people. Like,
Yeah.
I was big. I was a big dude. Like, people, whenever I went out, like, I was mistaken for a line. I was mistaken for an O lineman. I really was. I had that body shape, and first I wanted to tell people I am in no shape to block anyone. I shoot. I am not that guy. But I was like, and everybody would, I didn't like the pity of, oh, well, you wear it well. Like, oh, you're a tall guy, you wear it well. I was like, my ankles hurt, my knees hurt, my back hurts, my shoulders hurt, everything hurts. I don't wear anything well. Like, I hurt. And so from that moment where I was like, man, people have been able to stay in shape after college, after sports. Why is this so hard for me? And not that I wanted the external motivation to do it, but that's kind of what I needed a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. So how tall are you?
I'm 6'5".
Okay. So yeah, going up and down is pretty dramatic just because you got the height anyway.
Yes.
Yeah. And then you figure 6'5". I mean, you probably lost count of the miles you ran, even at your best shape, and so now you add the weight onto that and not the running. Yeah.
Bro, I pick up 2 50-pound weights and carry 100 pounds, and I think, like, how did I do this? How did I do this for 10 years? Like, it's impossible. It's impossible for me to walk 10 minutes with those things around a gym, but I did it for almost a decade.
Wow. So talk about anxiety and how this played into all this and what that has been like for you.
How I try to explain it to people, there is a constant thought of failure in my head since I was a kid. Everything I did, school, girls, friendships, anything, sports, really sports. And the thing I like to tell people is that even if I was the best player on a team, whether that be soccer, basketball, whatever I was playing, pickup, I always had this anxiety that I had to do more, or I had to be better, or I was never good enough. Now, I know a lot of NBA professional players will use that as motivation. They'll say things like, I always pretend I have to be better than everybody, or always pretend that I have to prove myself, and that's what motivates them. That didn't motivate me. That kept me back. That did. I mean, and I think one of the things about mental health is how unique it is, and how we have to look at it on an individual basis. What may work for Kobe Bryant is not going to work for Mario Chalmers. What's going to work for LeBron won't work for Jordan, Kareem. Like, it's different how these guys are successful. But for me, it was, for instance, I started on the varsity basketball team sophomore, junior, senior year. Like, that was the starting small forward shooting guard. And beginning of my senior year, we have this transfer student come in who plays my specific position. And instead of me thinking, I got this guy, it's a wrap, like, I'm not even worried about this dude, my initial thought was, okay, well, there goes my playing time. Like, I never seen this dude play, but in my head, and I was the MVP of this team. I was the most valuable player in this team. I was, I was almost all state. Like, with guys like Dion, like in Georgia. And first thing in my head is, okay, there goes I'm done. There goes my playing time. And how it manifests in me is just everything in my life, even if I have a smile on my face, even if I'm laughing and joking, I'm thinking about what's going to go wrong, what's going to happen that's going to be detrimental to this situation. And it can be debilitating at times, but, I've learned to notice it and kind of work through it.
You're not a Capricorn, are you?
I am not. I'm a Taurus.
No. So. Okay. I was going to say, because I do the negative foresight thing myself, It doesn't matter how good it's going. I'm sitting there like, well, this happens. Let me prepare for that.
What's like something in the universe is going to fall down on me right now. Yep. That's what I do.
I always got to be ready.
Yeah.
or prepared is what I say. Boy Scout is always prepared. So I was a Boy Scout when I was younger, so that's always stuck with me. Unfortunately, it's had that negative side where I'm always trying to be prepared for everything.
Right.
But you know, that's I have my own mental illnesses as well. So talk about Adderall. And I was curious when I looked at your profile and I kind of read some of this stuff, and Adderall is something probably 90% of the people who are going to watch or listen to this podcast have heard may not understand the depths of it. It's common to treat ADHD.
Correct.
But how did you react to it?
So to give you just a quick backstory, when I was in middle school and high school, like my teachers knew I had ADHD. Like they knew it. And for those of us who've had black mothers, we know nothing wrong with my baby. Nothing wrong. He needs to apply himself.
Nope.
Needs to apply himself.
Put some tussin on it. You'll be all right.
Yes. So, I wasn't a bad, I was actually, above average student. And I did well in most classes. There's some classes that I just, to this day, like statistics. I don't know why anybody would take that class. That's a horrible class, and that should go away, in my opinion. Of course, it's my opinion. I was terrible, but I digress. Yeah. So I'm just kind of going through school and life with, not being able to focus on anything. And I took a job at a startup company where everything was going just a million miles a minute. And I said out loud, like, it's hard for me to get my work done. I can't focus on one thing. Like I'm working from 8 to 8 each day, and I don't think I've gotten anything accomplished. And so I was with a therapist, and she had mentioned ADHD, and again in my brain, I'm hearing my mother, and God rest her soul, saying nothing's wrong with you, nothing's wrong with you, nothing's wrong with you. And finally, she said it's not a bad idea to at least talk to your doctor about it. I said, you know what? That's not going to hurt me. So I talked to him, and it was a good discussion because he told me straight up. He's like, I used to be in the group that didn't believe in this stuff. Like I thought kids just had to do better and work harder and just try harder in school. He's like, but I've seen this medicine and this therapy turn C+ students into A+ students, but just because they were able to focus. He's like, so I'm going to start you on some. Let me know how you feel, and then we can shift or change it up as needed. And I tell you what, the first day I took it, because Adderall is quick release, within 2 hours, all my anxiety went away. Every bit of my anxiety went away. I was able to focus at work. I was able to get my work done within the 8 hours. Totally, like everything just colors got brighter. I was more focused. I was livelier. I did stuff with intention, and I didn't have a bit of anxiety that day, which is weird because it usually has the other effect when it comes to anxiety. Only a small percentage of people will minimize their anxiety on the drug. And it happened with me. I'm very thankful for it. I'm on a small daily dose, which, works great for me, but that's, it's literally like I was living in a fog for most of my life and trying to navigate. I could see everything and get through it. However, once I took that, it all cleared for me. And it felt really wild and great at the same time.
I'm trying to remember the name of the movie that has the guy that pops a pill, makes him really focus.
Yeah, with Bradley Cooper. I know exactly the one you're talking about. Yep.
And I'm sitting there as you're talking, I'm like, he's winding the sentence down. I still can't think of it. But just a fun fact, I actually aced statistics. Just want to put that out there.
Man, I tell you what, your brain is different than mine. I have a buddy who has a doctorate in statistics, and he works for the Department of Education. I can't, bruh. I was with my teacher so many late nights trying to figure that out, and I squeaked it out with a C. And I was able to graduate, so I'm good.
It's a passing grade, so
it is.
I don't know. I don't think I've ever met anybody that did a doctorate in statistics. I would never go that far. I mean, I love math. I don't love it that much.
He does. He's the dude for it.
Now, you did talk about talking to someone, talking to a doctor, and this is, I mean, obviously this was more for the prescription side, but talk about therapy. I know you're a big proponent of therapy. How has that helped you? And talk about your experience with it, and how have you, pushed it on other people, but suggested it for other people, and has it been beneficial to them?
And you're absolutely right. I will never push therapy. I think it's one of the few things in life that anybody and everybody can get something out of. I think people overcomplicate therapy. They think they have to go in and get some diagnosis, and they watch so many movies and shows, and they see The Sopranos, and Tony's in there, and she's diagnosing him and taking apart his, and it's nothing like that. It's nothing like that. The good therapist, and when I say good is relative. Like, you have to find the therapist who's right for you. And it took me a couple to figure it out. But it's a conversation that provides just balance to your life. It's a conversation that takes some of that weight off of your life. And I've had some therapy appointments that have gone an hour and a half, and we've talked about me and my kids and what we did over the weekend. And I went into long soliloquies about my kids and sports and what we did over the weekend. And then we've had 45-minute conversations that were just really dense about my feelings and how I felt inadequate and how I just needed to work on my coping mechanisms. And I really feel that it's valid that people have a fear of therapy. It's totally valid. Like, who wants to be picked apart by a stranger? Like, who wants that? Who wants somebody to write notes about them and you leave the room and they're, typing on their computer about things you're going through? But I had a good friend once tell me that she looked at therapy as someone who was able to hold that weight for you. When you walk in there and you have the weight of the world, and she was going through postpartum, and she said that person just took that weight off of me and was able to hold it. That's their job, is to hold weight for the people that they're helping. And I think, that's a beautiful thing to me. It really is a beautiful thing. And whether you're going through something or not, it's always nice just to have an ear that's not judging you as you're talking, which a lot of us don't have that in our life.
Yeah. Yeah, it's two quick things. So one, I've done therapy before, and it's something I do want to personally go back and do again. But what I found is many close friends I have, and I tell them stories, secrets, all that stuff. I feel the most comfortable telling a complete stranger, and that's how I look at it. This is somebody who I don't talk to them every day. They don't call me. They don't text me goodnight. They don't do any of those things. It's somebody I go see for an hour, 90 minutes here and there. I tell them about my life, and then I walk away.
Yeah.
But I found the most level comfort with a complete stranger in my mind. A therapist, not just anybody at the airport lounge, but a complete stranger.
I mean, you never know. Delta Sky Mile. I heard the lounge is really nice. Never been in it, but
yeah. I will say it's interesting and I've told this story before. When I travel, strangers are drawn to telling me their life stories. I don't know how it happens. I'll go sit, because I used to go early. I'll sit at a bar or a lounge, whatever, and sit there, watch TV, wait for my flights, and people will sit next to me and they will tell me their life story. If it's happened once, it's happened 1,500 times. It's just.
My wife says I have that face where people just want to say stuff. I don't know if it's the black guy in the beard. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But and I look at her like, please save me, and she's like, no, they need to talk to you. So I'm walking. I'm like, this is.
Yeah, anytime I'm traveling with somebody, I get that too. No, I'm just going to let it go. They need this moment with you, but I don't need this moment. Why am I awake? Do I get to say this? But the second thing I want to, real quick from your last comment, is postpartum depression. So I've never, I don't think I've known anyone who's at least told me they had it. But for those who've told me they've known somebody had it or have experience with it in some capacity, it's really serious stuff. I mean, it's, the way I approach it and the way I've heard about it, it's you just gave birth to a life that you're now feeling some type of way about that's not really positive. And it's just, to me, it's mind blowing.
It is. And, as men, it's something we'll never fully understand, because I try to be empathetic I'm unable to be empathetic in that situation. Like, I've never produced a child with my body and then had that child forced on me, and you must love this thing in front of you. This is 100% your responsibility for the rest of their life, and it's like, I'll never fathom that in my head. I can't. It's impossible.
Yeah. It's one of those things, guys and girls, we have our differences. Some things we can be empathetic. Some things we just be supportive. Whatever you need, I got you. The peanut
Exactly.
B&J sandwich, I got you. But other things like this, I got nothing. Like, I don't even know where to start. But you talked about mothers, always having, that's my baby, nothing's wrong with them. But in the bigger picture, why is mental health such a hot and cold issue in the Black community? It's either embraced or full on pushed away.
And this is one of those things that there's just generational trauma there. And of all the races, Black people, we had those familiar roles that we had to live by. And I know there's a part of this society, a part of this country that doesn't want to hear about, Jim Crow and slave times. We don't want to hear about that. I understand that. But you know what? We have to talk about it because it still has the effects. Like, we had fathers who were gone most of the day to try to make a living. We had mothers who had to do the child rearing, who had to educate and feed the family and the kids. And we had young boys who were emulating their fathers and young women who had to emulate their mothers if they wanted to continue the race. And at no point could a Black man go back to his family when he was working in the field, working for cents, whatever, minimal amount of money, and go back and say, I'm tired today. I just can't do it. I need a break. I need to decompress. I need somebody to talk. Like, they weren't able to do that. I mean, they could have done it, but they would have been laughed at by other families, and their wife would have thought they were weak, and their son would have wondered what's happening to their father, and their daughter would have said, my daddy's not strong. And that we as young boys, we emulate our fathers. I have to be strong. I have to be outwardly strong. My worth only depends on how much I can give. That's it. As a Black man, that's what your worth is. Like, what are you giving society? What are you giving your family? What are you giving the rest of people? Never, what are you giving yourself? And so this and the thing about it is, mental health is not like it didn't exist back then. Mental health issues, they did exist back then. People were depressed, anxious, bipolar. They high functioning anxiety. We had those things, but we had to bottle them all in. So as a society, we learned that this is the right way to do things. This is the only way to do things. And you're seeing it.
The other side of that too, not to cut you off, but the other side of that too is you talked about bottle it up. The other side of that is a lot of bottles being drinking as well as a coping mechanism. And so you hear a lot of stories about, my dad was a drunk, my dad was always drinking. That was his outlet. That was his break. That was the only time during the day he had to decompress and not feel the stress and not try to earn and not try to think down the line and not try to solve problems and all these other things. Unfortunately, alcohol was the option.
Unfortunately, and that's what people will use whatever they can get to help them, or what they think is helping them. And for some people, it might be alcohol. Some people, it might be drugs. Some people, it might be food. It might be, sex. There's so many things that people can find like that just so quickly, and they can forget about their problems for an hour. Or they can sleep through their problems, and it's so detrimental to a community.
Yeah. So, looking at all that, the hot and coldness of this issue in the Black community, and I'm not excluding other communities, but in the Black community, how can someone in need, how can their friends and family actually help them?
First thing I want to say is I love the fact that we're talking specifically about the Black community, and you did something, and it's nothing bad that you did, but it's that reaction real quick when we talk about something Black, and we have to mention, well, this happens in other communities. Like, I do the same thing all the time, and I want people to know, like, we have to have this discussion. And it's not that I don't care about white, Asian, Native American, all those communities, but I have a responsibility.
We're
talking about us. Yeah, exactly. And if someone listens to this and shuts it off and be like, oh, here they go again, then you're probably the one that needs to listen to it the most.
Yeah.
And I would love to be empathetic and sympathetic to this conversation and say, this is how we make this transition. This is how we become better as people. We need to rip the Band-Aid off. And that's what I'm doing. Like, as a father, like, I refuse to sit back and not show my feelings to my family. I refuse to sit back and not show other black men that they can talk to me, that we can talk about things other than the basketball game that happened last night. We can talk about things other than, some sports or new bourbon, or we can talk about something other than that. We can talk about how you feel, how things make you feel. And it's uncomfortable. I'm not going to lie. It is uncomfortable for a lot of people, because when you ask me how I'm doing, I'm going to tell you how I'm doing or how I'm feeling. And I will be vulnerable in front of you. And if that makes you uncomfortable, good. That's the right feeling, because you've never witnessed this before. You've never had, this is your growth. And we as black men, we have this stigma around us that we have to constantly be strong. We have to constantly defend. We have to constantly protect. And I'm going to tell you right now, we don't. We don't have to do that. We can be weak. Vulnerability is strength. It's okay to come home and say, I don't have it today. And as other men, we have to pick up on those cues, because it's very rare that someone like me will come along and tell you how I feel. Men have cues that we use when we're going through something. Oh man, today was tough. I can't believe they did this to me. Like, we talk in little codes, and it's up to our friends to say, wait a second, let me put the phone down. Let me pause the game. We all can pause TV now. Let's pause and just let me see how he's doing. Let me see how Mark's doing. Let me see how Dave's doing. Let me see how these guys are doing. And let's just have a conversation.
Yeah, I know I have my cues, because so people normally ask me, how's it going? I'll say, I can't complain. And then sometimes I'll say, I can't complain, but nobody's listening. And that subtle difference, you can tell I'm either annoyed, I'm like, I got so much stuff right now, you don't even know what I want to say to you.
Right.
So as both former athletes, we understand that, in order to get good at something, you got to practice it, right?
Yep.
And I'll be the first to say I hated practice. I just wanted to play the games. But you got to do it. In order to get good at your craft, good at anything, whether it's sports or not, you got to practice at it. So talk about how you practice your mental health to be in the best mental health shape that you can be.
I tell you what, the best practice that I've learned, and I've done meditation in the past. I've done mindfulness training and journaling, things like that. However, for me, nothing works better than being intentional with my actions. And what I mean by that is everything I'm not going to say everything, I'm not Superman, but most of the things that I do in my life, I try to put intent behind them. If I'm coaching my daughter's soccer team, like, at no point do I just want to go through the motions and just get through the practice. All right, let's just get through the practice and go. Like, my thought is that I'm going to be the best version of myself, the best coach for these girls. I'm going to teach them life lessons while I teach them the game. Like, I want to be intentional. When I'm at the gym, like, I don't just go around talking to people and maybe lift a weight here and there. Like, I'm thinking about the muscle groups that I'm working that day. When I go for runs, I'm thinking about, what body parts am I really focusing on? Am I looking to sprint the final, half mile? Am I looking to go for a nice slow jog to really work on, burning fat, keep my heart rate down? And people think to themselves, like, oh, that sounds like a lot. Like, I can't go through my day being intentional with everything. Once you get into a habit, once you do it once, twice, a few times, like, you start to notice that you can't do things without the intent now. Like, when I meal prep, I'm thinking about what meals during the week I'm going to use this for, and what fuel I'm getting back, what macronutrients am I getting from this. And it's just a habit now. It's second nature. And so that really allows me that allows me to focus on my day and focus on what my goals are, and then it allows me to be a better husband, better father, better listener, better friend. And that's what really has helped me in this journey that I'm on.
Now, it's interesting you talk about meal prepping. So as horrible as COVID was, and 2020, the lockdown, all that stuff, I say the best thing that came out of it is I learned how to meal prep. Because, I was either go out and eat or just cook a bunch of stuff and have leftovers, not really intentional, as you say, with my meal prepping. But I came out of that, number one, cooking a lot cleaner, a lot healthier. And just portioning. I would honestly waste so much food. My grandmother would slap me from her grave with how much food I waste. But yeah, being intentional about meal prepping became my thing. So yeah, I totally get that. One quick question before I get to my actual last question.
Mm-hmm.
So you talk about coaching your daughter.
Mm-hmm.
How does that feel? I mean, that's like me coaching my future son one day in football. Like how does that actually? What goes through your mind?
It wasn't.
I don't even know
my
how to
plan.
ask the question, but I think you get what I'm trying to ask.
I know. Like my dad coached my brother and I at young ages, like rec for basketball. My dad didn't know anything about soccer, so he never coached us in soccer. We always had other coaches. And my plan, I had the same plan. I was like, I want to watch her play. Like, I want to be from a distance. I have a feeling that I'm going to be too tough on her. And so the first season, I didn't coach. Every now and again, I help out. I said, hey, I played in college. Y'all need any help? Need me to fill in? Let me know. By the end of the season, I was on the bench with him. And then by the second season, the guy was like, do you just want to coach with me? And I was like, yes.
Nice.
Yes, I do. And my daughter that I coach is a little mini version of me. She literally wants to do everything I do, wants to wear the hoodies, the sweatshirt. She wants, the type of shoe. She wants everything. And I'm looking at her play, and she has that same kind of lackadaisical attitude when it comes to playing. So it's like she'll work hard when she wants to work hard, when it's an opportunity for her to work hard. But when no one's listening or no one's watching her, she has ADHD too, and it manifests differently in little girls, and she gets lost some places. But I was really hard on her the first year. I'm not even going to lie to you. Like, I was hard on this 7-8-year-old playing soccer for fun. And I've calmed it down because I actually talked to one of the guys from 6 a.m. Run who coached his daughter, and she went at him because she noticed similar plays. He was hard on her and really sympathetic to another girl. And I was like, kids notice these things. Like, they notice when you're treating others better than them. And it manifests last weekend where, she had a decent game, didn't play great, but, it is what it is. And I was trying to coach her from the sidelines, and she was in her feelings, as I say, and she was in the car on the ride back, and she was kind of upset. And I said, honey, let me know why. What are you upset about? And she's like, I want to talk about it. And I said, well, what's up? Tell me. I want to learn. Like, tell me what's going on. And she said, well, you yelled at me. And I said, I never yelled at you. But in her head, she's preparing for me to be hard on her. Like, I never raised my voice. I made it a point never to do it. And I said, are you just preparing for Daddy to get mad at you? And she said, yes. And I was like, man, this is exactly what I didn't want to happen. And so this game that we just played, and she played great. I gave her a little feedback once. She got in the car, and she's like, Daddy, I didn't get my feelings at all this game, did I? I was like, no, you didn't. She's like, I almost did. I was like, you're right, you almost did, but we got through it. So we're slowly coming, but I love it. She just joined another basketball team, which I am not coaching, thank God. She has a very good coach. But if you're going to do it, if you're going to coach your own kids, make sure you have that internal kind of monitor that you're treating them exactly the same as the other kids and not harder just because they're your kid.
Yeah, you could probably pick any movie from the 90s, 80s where the father's coaching the son in football, and he's just grinding them into the grass. There was I forget the name of the movie, but there was one where there were two brothers on a team. The dad pushed one so hard he collapsed and wound up dying. He just was denying on the water, and so the other son just had this lifelong hatred for the dad. It just kept manifesting. I forget the name of the movie. It was either a movie or it was might have been Quantum Leap. I used to watch Quantum Leap a lot. And so that pops up in my head a lot. Right. But it makes total sense. I have a friend of mine who coaches his little boy and little girl in soccer, but softball, basketball. I think they do too. They do so many things. But he loves it. I mean, he's constantly coaching some team. I mean, that's just his calling.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I look forward on the days that we have practice. Like, I love it so much. It's so fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I talked about in my opening. I had my godson and his brother for the weekend. I got uncle duties for the weekend this past weekend. And Thursday, I took the brother to his soccer practice, and just to watch these little kids just not paying attention to anything. And because he's 6, so they're just all over the place.
It's like herding cats.
I'm just watching this. Yeah, I'm watching this poor instructor going, red means stop, and they're just like, what? Squirrel, what? Yeah, it's just hilarious.
Patience. You will learn patience. You will learn patience.
Well, I think my name was Uncle Dave was said about 250 times or so. That was the over under this weekend. It was just, and it's from both of them. Uncle Dave, Uncle Dave, Uncle Dave. Yeah, just like, look at this, look at this, look at this, look at this. And they both have iPads, so they're all doing. It was nuts, but it was fun. It was a lot of fun. I think I'm prepared for my first child at some point, like 10 years from now. So last question: talk about your podcast and what made you start them, what they're about.
So I'll start with the 6amrun.com podcast. That was started by a guy named Hami, who started 6am Run, a fitness and nutrition company, and that's one of the supplements that I use for running and fitness. And it's a clean supplement. There's no jittery anything after it. And he had started the podcast, and he knew I had another one, and we had become friends. And he said, "Hey, you're doing this. Would you like to help me out and host mine a couple times a week?" And I said, "Sure." And that turned into me being the host of it. So I love doing that. It's a good show. It's not just about running. We have a lot of people on there who talk about fitness, talk about mental health. We have people talking about, professional speaking. It's one of those podcasts that if you put it on while you go for a run or while you go to the gym, you'll learn something from it. And then Relatively Normal is my podcast, and we're on the 5th season, and it was kind of a brainchild of one of the worst therapy sessions I ever had, where I came in a terrible state of mind. The world was not on fire. It wasn't even raining outside. Like, it was a beautiful day, and I was just I was just depressed. And finally my therapist, after about half an hour, was like, "Hey, just tell me what you want. Tell me what you expect out of life. Like, what do you want right now?" And I told him, I just want to be like the people outside without a care in the world. They don't care about anything that's going wrong. I just want to be normal. And he said to me, and I'll never forget, he said, "Well, this is your normal. Like, normal is relative. Like, you just have a different way of taking in the world. You have different triggers, and we just have to create different coping mechanisms for you. But your normal is relative. There's nothing wrong with you." And I'll never, that was a turning point for me when it came to mental health, because all the time I thought something was wrong with me. I'm in my 30s. I have a nice job. My wife's an attorney. I got 2 kids at home. I got the house, the car. The checklist, boom, 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 I got it. Yeah. But I think the world's on fire. And he said, "This is why you have me. This is why we're going to work through some things and put some coping mechanisms together. But you're totally normal. Your normal is relative." And that's where it started. And I did it. I made the show so men can hear another man, especially a black man, talking about his feelings, talking about emotions, and saying, "Oh, if Mark is doing it, then I guess it's cool for me to do it." So that's why I was started.
Gotcha. Two quick things. So the first, I'll start with the therapist. Could it have been that in that moment, in that space that you were in, you just needed somebody to tell you that you're actually okay? It's not something that's wrong with you. This is who you are, and this is how you deal, as opposed to you have a problem.
I needed somebody who didn't have it didn't have anything to do with me, because a wife, a friend, a parent, somebody could have said, "Oh, Mark, you're fine." I could have thought they're just saying it to say it for me. But I needed somebody who was not vested in me, who could have told me 1,000 different things. "Mark, well, there is something wrong with you, and we got to get you some." I needed that voice to tell me, "Listen, you're okay. You're fine the way you are." And he was the right person at that time.
Yeah, it's kind of like how I was talking about I need a stranger. I feel most comfortable with a stranger. Yeah,
right.
And the second thing, a little more comical. So just want to make sure I heard this right. The running podcast, 6 a.m. What's it called? 6 a.m.
6 a.m. Run. Yeah. 6amrun.com.
So you were asked to co-host it, and now you are the host.
So Hami is very busy. I mean, he's the CEO and co-founder of a small business, and he's trying to get off the ground, and he's trying to do podcasts, a couple times a week, and he knew what I did, and he's like, first he's like, "Hey, I would love you to come, just do a couple for me." And then one day we sat down, and he was like, "Hey, I'll be honest with you, I just don't have the time. Do you mind taking over?" And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, yeah, I want to do this. Like I love doing that. I don't know how you feel about your show, but when I put the cans on and I start talking to people, it's like I'm a different person. It's like I'm in my zone.
Yeah, I was telling somebody the other day. I said, yeah, I did some broadcasting when I was in college. I had radio shows and all that stuff, but it's radio. It's like you're looking at a screen, you're looking at dials, you're not really interacting so much. But podcasting is different because every time I do a show, it's somebody completely new I haven't met before, unless they're a repeat guest. And it just goes how it goes. I've had, I'd say, 98% great vibes with the guests that I've had on. There was like one or two where I was just like, oh my God, can I end this soon? But and there are people who watch and listen. They know exactly what I'm talking about. But it's an experience, right? You get to step into somebody else's world. They get to come into yours, and you do it in front of however many people listen or watch your podcast. Right. So it's kind of cool.
I think it's amazing. I think it's an awesome platform, and at no time will I think too many people are podcast hosts, because when you think about it, I think it's something over 80% of podcasts don't last past the fifth or sixth show, something like that. Mm-hmm. So once you get into the second and third seasons, that's an accomplishment, and I think you should pat yourself on the back for that.
Yeah, thank you. You too. So this is episode 54, I believe. So season 4, episode 4, yeah, because my last episode of last season was 50, so this is 54. Mm-hmm. So I only do twice a month just because I am that busy. I'm that guy. So if I get a co-host, they might be taking us over. But yeah, that's where it's at. So that's the end of the Q&A, and now we're going to move on to my favorite segment with my guest called First Thoughts. But First Thoughts is brought to you in part by SRE Solutions, simple solutions for complex problems. For over 15 years, SRE Solutions has provided today's solution to prevent tomorrow's problem. SRE Solutions will provide you effective, efficient, robust, and reliable business intelligence, application and website design, and PC support services, and more. For more information, visit their website at www.sresolutions.org. So, if you're listening or watching for the first time, as I always say, shame on you, but I'm happy you're here. The way First Thoughts works is I give my guests a word or a phrase, and the idea is, what's their first thought? They're not privy to this at all. They would have not had a sneak peek, because obviously that would ruin the whole first thought. Blah, blah, blah. You get it. I do this every time. It'll ruin the first thought. I wouldn't do that. So, Mark, are you ready for some first thoughts?
I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of pressure now, but yes, let's do this. Let's do it.
Yeah, everybody feels that way. I don't know why. I'm a gentle giant. So first thought, if I say the word staying motivated to you, what's your first thought?
Absolutely overrated to stay motivated. First, motivation is the killer of most plans, fitness plans, mental health plans. Motivation will ruin people really quickly. Do I need to elaborate on that? Do you want me to elaborate on that or not?
You can feel free to elaborate as much or as little as you want to. I'm more surprised that was the answer. I've never heard someone anti-motivation. And I'm not saying anti-motivation, but I don't know how to put that.
I'm not anti-motivation, and you spoke about mental health and sports at the beginning of the episode, which I thought was absolutely wonderful. We need to talk about that more. People like DeMar DeRozan and Kevin Love who've come out and said things like that, and I think we need to talk about that more. But sticking on sports, and I think this is a great segue here, is that the basketball season is 82 games long. Football season is now 18 weeks now, and we're asking guys to not only give up family time. Yes, we're paying them well, but family time with their family, time with their kids. We're asking them to give up their entire lives for a city to make money and for a league to make money. Yes, I understand there's fame and there's glory and all that stuff, but you can't tell me after 82 games and after 4 series and Game 7, like someone is highly motivated to put their body on the line all the time. Yeah. Maybe Game 1, 2, Week 3, whatever. I'm not motivated every day to wake up at 4:30 to go to the gym. However, I will say that if we look at discipline the way that people really want to look at motivation, I think it helps us. I'm not going to be motivated all the time. And if you're looking to be motivated to continually reach your goals or continually get in your fitness journey or your nutrition journey or mental health journey, what happens that day you're not motivated? What happens that week? You're not motivated. Those 30 days, you're not motivated. Then you don't meal prep, and you don't go to the gym, and you don't go to your therapist, and you don't journal, and you don't do mindfulness training. However, if you understand that discipline is the key to all those things, then you won't need the motivation. And those days that you are motivation, that's just, extra icing on top of it. So that's what's helped me. So that's what I say.
Yeah, I don't stand corrected, but I stand corrected. That I'll take discipline over motivation any day after that explanation.
Yeah.
Speaking of, literally after we finish recording, I got to work out. That's how disciplined I am.
There you go. Exactly.
Yeah, that was a great answer, man. So next first thought, if I say to you ADHD non-believers, what's your first thought?
My first thought is I don't care. I don't care. Like, I do not care one bit. I know who I am. I know who my daughter is. I've seen it in action. I'm not asking you to believe that the earth is flat, because we all know that's
almost all
not
of us.
True. Almost all of us. But, there is this thing about not understanding what we can't see. And there's this thing that a lot of us still want to do, which we've been told not to do from a young age, to raise other people's kids. I will never tell you how to raise your kid. I'll never tell you how to do your show. I will never tell anybody how to do anything that does not have anything to do with me. All I know is that what I've been through, what I see in my daughter, and what I like everyone to believe it, what I like everyone to be open and honest about, what ADHD actually looks like. Sure, of course, I'd love that. But at the end of the day, I'm not stupid. I live in reality. Like, if everybody saw the world through my lens, this would be a really boring world. So I don't care about you. A few years ago, I probably would have, and it would have kept me up at night. But now I could care less.
Gotcha. No, I get it. I say a lot that I don't care what people think. There's a small percentage of me that actually does, but overall, I just don't. I mean, there's nobody going to pay my bills. There's nobody going to make my decisions for me, suffer the repercussions, none of that stuff. So generally, I carry the attitude, I don't care.
You know what's funny about that is that I used to waste so much time trying to change people's minds. Like, I used to waste so much time, using intellect and facts and words and then at the end of the day, I realized that I go into conversations now because people say, "Oh, what's your opinion? What do you think about that?" And I think about what I say in the next 30 seconds. Is it going to change this person's 30 or 40 years of thinking? No, it's not. And a lot of times I just say, "Hey, I don't have an opinion on it," just to stay out of those conversations. And that has helped my mental health by so much. And I catch myself sometimes getting into the arguments, and I go, wait. No, I'm cool. Yeah. So, yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah, I will say for me, social media kind of amplified that because I was a huge social media debater, and I'm a very big proponent of bringing facts to a discussion fight. And putting those two personality traits on social media just makes trolls just love me.
Yes.
Because, they know I just got to mention something. Dave's going to jump into an argument. I can go back and forth for hours. And I used to have literally a troll who targeted me, not necessarily social media bullying or anything like that, but literally he would tag me in things and say, "Hey, Dave, say some comment or some opinion," just knowing it would trigger me.
No, yeah.
And one day I just said, I got to get off social media. I got to stop having these conversations. I'm not, like you said, I'm not going to change anybody else's mind. They're not going to look at Trump differently. They're not going to look at this differently. I got to stop it. And somehow I gained all this time back,
Exactly.
Meal prepping. Yeah.
Like, what am I going to type in this Facebook post or this tweet?
Yeah.
And somebody's going to look at it and be like, you know what? Oh man, I never even thought of that. He's right. I changed my whole perspective on life. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. I should have seen this fact 20 years ago.
Man, what was I doing?
All right. So first thought. If I say putting yourself first, what's your first thought?
Everyone should put themselves first. Everyone should put themselves first. It is something that people see as selfish. And not to bring religion in this, but, a lot of times we're told to always put others first. And I was raised in the Christian Catholic faith, and that's all I'll say about it. I won't get into religion on this, but always told to give of yourself, always give of yourself. And as growing up, like that's all I was doing. Like I was just giving, like my time. I would give you the shirt off my back. Last dollar I had, I was giving you everything. And amazingly, I was sad and depressed and anxious all the time because I'm like, when's the next person going to ask something of me? And, oh, by the way, I never get to ask for anything in return. And then I thought to myself, everything I love in this world, everything that's important, my family, my friends, my job, my hobbies, my health, everything, there's one singular part, common denominator to all of that, and that's me. So if I'm not taking care of myself, I can't do any of those other things that I love so dearly. So that changed in me where if Mark gets his time each day, then everyone else gets the best version of me. And if I don't get my time that day, and my wife will tell you, some days she's like, you need to go for a run, don't you? I was like, you're right. You're right. I need to. You need to go to the gym. You need to, yeah, I do.
You need to go somewhere.
I need to go somewhere. You need to take care of that first. And I think more, and I had this discussion with another friend who happens to be a black man who was going through some things at home. And I told him about that. He's like, I just know the Lord tells me that's not how I live my life. I need to give. I was like, well, you're the one having this conversation with me. Like you brought this up with me. And I was like, I understand it might be my opinion. It might be something that's worked for me, but I think more and more people need to understand that it is okay to take care of yourself.
Yeah, that's something I've struggled with myself, but I've got literally a Post-it on my monitor right here that says put yourself first. A friend of mine left that, snuck into my office and wrote it and left it there. But yeah, I mean, if you don't put yourself first, who will?
Who will?
The old saying, right?
Exactly. And does that mean how many, like, think about first is one, and you can't put everybody else first. Like I put my wife and my kids and my best friend from high school, my parent, like not everybody can have the one. And there's a reason for that. Like you are like, tell yourself you're important. Like not enough people say that. Like people think they're dispensable. People think, well, if I leave this earth, everything will be fine. No. People will be upset. Things will fall apart. Things will have to be rebuilt because you're not here. Like you are important.
Yeah, and it's another topic for another day, but so much about what's happened in my personal life the last year or so with losing friends, losing family. I have a funeral to go to on Thursday. But just the carnage, for lack of a better word in this moment, left behind, whether it be lack of life insurance, lack of estate planning, lack of, just organization in general. Even, especially in the black community, we've got to do a better job of estate planning and all these things.
Correct.
Living wills. What happens if, you do survive, but you're unconscious. You can't make decisions to get you to that survival state. There's so much there. But that's another topic for another day.
Yes.
I'm tired of seeing GoFundMe's, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
But Mark, I do want to thank you for stepping in Dave's head and taking the time. I know we went over the hour that we had allocated, but it happens sometimes. But before I let you go, I'd like to have my guest talk about anything. Oh, wait, what am I talking about? Sorry, I'm not even going to edit this out because we're just off the rails from before. So this season, I started something called TO First Thoughts. I completely forgot about that, which gives the power of my guests gives the power to my guests to ask me a topic, comment, phrase, whatever, to get my first thoughts. All over the place today. So, Mark, do you have something for me? Any topic we discuss or anything at all? First thought for me.
Yeah, I do. And you had mentioned March Madness. So I think my phrase for you is going to be one and done.
One and done. First thing that pops into my mind is not a school at all, but it's the threat to a coaching job. if you don't get to a Sweet 16. And I don't like when they associate, if you don't get to this bracket level, your job is threatened. Hello, I'm one of 64 teams in this country of 200 and something, whatever the college number is, that got to the dance. At least just the fact that I got to the dance should be enough. But if I don't get to Elite 8, or I've gotten to 2 Sweet 16s in a row, but I've never gotten to a Final Four, that just means there are teams better than me in the bracket. I mean, I can't be the best team every year. But that's when it comes to coaching, and I know, listen, coaches have their negatives, the system has their negatives, but I don't. If you get to the dance, if that's your Mendoza line, that should be it. It shouldn't be a certain level, because I mean, we've seen this weekend anything can happen. We got Princeton going to the Sweet 16. We got was it Fulmer, whatever. I don't even know the name of the school. They're in the Sweet 16. We got 2 number 1s going down. 2 number 2s I think went down. I mean, is suddenly Kansas, their coach, in trouble? No, it's. You get to the dance, that should be enough.
You went a different way than I thought you would, but I kind of like that. I kind of like that, especially with the way the game is played now, where anyone can beat anyone any day of the week. So I like that.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing too, when it comes to coaches, I mean, I know we have athletes. You know, now we got the transfer portal, we got the money making scheme, which I'm actually happy about, because their likeness has been used for so long.
Yeah.
But the fact that, like, listen, unless I'm having a really crappy season, there's really no reason to fire a coach unless you really just want to go after another coach, and just say that.
Right.
But don't put it out there, oh, if you don't get to the Sweet 16, his job might be in jeopardy. And all these schools, professional organizations do it too. They leak these things to the press just to get the buzz out. These rumors don't start by themselves. They have contacts, they leak the stuff, and, you know. But that's my little tangent for the day. But Mark, now it's appropriate to say this. I do want to thank you for stepping into Dave's head. Before we go, I'd like to have my guests, if you have anything you want to talk about or promote, feel free to do so now.
Sure. Well, I just appreciate being here, and please go have your guests take a listen to my podcast, especially the 6 a.m. run, and head over to 6amrun.com to sign up to get 20% off your first order. You can look me up on Instagram by just Instagram, Relatively Normal Podcast, or follow my fitness journey at Paisant_fitness. And I am really vocal and social on LinkedIn, and that's just Marc Paisant, MarcPaisant on LinkedIn. Other than that, that's all I got.
Great. I will say, I think I either added you or just even looked at your profile, and I noticed like 20 minutes later, you suggested to me following. Yeah, he's very active on LinkedIn. Yeah. It was very quick. I just noticed that.
I like to. It's not a lot of work stuff. I like to stay, keep people motivated and inspirational, and there's enough minutia on LinkedIn already. I like to be the person you can pop up and say, I if I do need that motivation, I can get a little bit of. Now, am I going to do it every day for you? No. That again, talk about motivation, discipline. Like, I'm not going to do it every day, but you can find it.
Now I'm gonna throw one more question at you before I go. I know I said I was done, and it's about running, and I'm gonna ask you an either or, interval training or distance training.
For me, distance, and I'll tell you why really quickly. It's because with distance, I get to pick if I want to go for speed, for time, or for distance. And I think that gives me a lot more variables to run with, because I can say, hey, I want to go outside and run for 30 minutes today, and I won't even track how far I go. Or some days I'll say, hey, I want to keep a 9:30 mile, and I'll just keep that 9:30 mile. And other days I'll say, I want to run, 4 miles today, and I'll run the 4 miles and stop. It gives me how my brain works. Like, I like that to be able to tell myself what I'm going to do and do it. And I think when people ask me about how do they first get into running, pick one of those three. You want to go for one of those three. Like, you want to go for time, you want to go for distance, or you're going to go for, how fast you run. So time, distance, or speed, one of those three, and that will help you along the way.
Gotcha. I appreciate that. So when I was playing college football, we had to run a 5-minute mile. We had to do that. Obviously I'm not in college anymore, so I was trying to maintain an 8-minute mile. I'm now like 8:30. I'm just maintaining 8:30. If I could do that, I feel good.
I rarely run sub 9 just because, like, why? Like, no one's watching me run. I used to go out and like try to keep that sub 9, and I would just be sore all the time. And I'm like, wait a second. First of all, I'm burning all carbs and sugar with that high of a heart rate. And I was like, if I slow it down and go longer, then I'm burning the fat versus the sugar. So There's a big difference. And we can,
Gotcha.
again, another show. Another show. I understand.
Gotcha. Well, I appreciate that and all the gems we had today. Mark, again, I want to thank you for stepping into Dave's head, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
My favorite segment of my podcast is my GRIN, which stands for Great Reason to Be in Love with Now. Athletes for Hope at www.athletesforhope.org was founded in 2006 by a group of elite athletes who all share a common bond, a deep commitment to helping others. These founders included, listen to this, Muhammad Ali, Warwick Dunn, Mia Hamm, Jackie Joyner-Kersee, Jeff Gordon, Andre Agassi, and Alonzo Mourning, among others. Now, it was designed to bring all types of athletes together to educate and inspire to channel their energy for a common goal, to make a difference in the world. Now, we've talked about mental health a lot this month. If you go back to my prior episode, Kia talked about her journey of fitness, from being teased as a young girl to always being, I can't remember exact nickname, but big boned, and it was something along those lines. Or big hips, I think, not big bone. It was a big hips, something. But that's kind of been the theme accidentally, but intentionally for this month, is talking about mental health, physical fitness, because March Madness is, like I said, daylight savings time last episode, I said, is a gateway to the spring, summer, warm months, golf for me. But a lot of people look at it also as a way to kickstart that mental and health journey towards what? Beachbody, right? I talk about Beachbody all the time. One, I have an innate fear, like I said, of being someone with a dad bod someday. And so I work out as much as I can. I play football still because I can't give it up apparently. And soon, once we hit about 45, 50 degrees, I'll start running outside again. Can't do cold weather running. Not me. If I'm playing football in it, one thing, I'm not running just to run in cold weather. But I thought it was a great thing to stumble upon because there are two programs that they have that Athletes for Hope has that I think are really, really cool. So the first one was established in 2021. It's called the Whole Being Athlete Program, which, quote, unites and empowers athletes of all levels and backgrounds to work together and reduce the stigma of mental health in and out of sports. And now there are 4 key areas in this program: education, storytelling, conveying, and advocacy. The first, education, is described as this: provide mental health education and training to our athlete network. Obviously, how can we go out and do this? We got to educate. We got to train. The second is storytelling. Expand athlete voice and input in the mental health space. Now that you're educated, you have to be prepared to go out and talk about it. The third is conveying. Cultivate community activations and service related to athlete mental health. How do you get this message out? What kind of activities, what kind of events, all these things, just to get the message out. And the last one, advocacy. Offer advocacy opportunities with existing mental health organizations. Now, like any initiative, there are people out there who've tried to do this before, have avenues, services, networks to facilitate this happening. So why reinvent the wheel? Go out there, advocate for it, get the support you need. The second program they have is called the HEART Curriculum. HEART, HEART, which stands for Hope, Education, Action, Reaching Out, and Teaching. That was created to address the alarming increase in reported anxiety, something we talked about today, depression, something we talked about today, and mental health issues among students across the United States. Again, something we talked about today. Now, again, number 4, it's a 4-part series of mental health sessions designed to increase education around mental wellness in elementary and middle-aged school children, which are grades 3 through 6. Curriculum sessions are offered on a monthly basis where one athlete is paired with a classroom to conduct 45-minute sessions, either in person or virtual. Now, the goals, there are 4 of them, a lot of 4s, right? The goals of the HEART curriculum include A, increase awareness of mental health tools, identification, and support sources. B, reducing stigma around mental health distractions. C, building resilience in students around mental health. And D, increase knowledge of social emotional skills, language, and support. Cool thing I found is that they actually have 3 chapters in the United States. And you think about this, this was founded in 2006. So it's not that old of an organization. It's not that young either, but it's not that old of a nonprofit. But they do have 3 chapters in the United States: Los Angeles, Austin, Texas, and Washington, D.C. I feel like they need to go to Philly, Delaware. We'll see. I'm going to reach out to them. True story. I'm actually going to reach out to them because I think there's some initiatives they have, not just these 2, they have a bunch of other programs, but I think it's something that I could connect with my fraternity, some of the organizations I'm a part of. So I'm going to reach out to them and see if that's something they're interested in, a partnership, and we'll go from there. But what I also want to convey, because, one of the things I pride myself on is doing research, not only for my guests for these shows, but for these segments that I have in my shows. Because one, I don't want to promote an organization or a company or a nonprofit that's shady or anything like that. 2, for those of you who actually do look into some of the things I recommend, I need you to know that 1, I benefit or profit from these not at all. This is simply me going with the theme of the show and finding a great reason to be in love, or a great reason to be in love with now about that topic because of organizations like this. And so in 2022, they put out their annual report. It's the last annual report. This is obviously 2023. And I was very fascinated and surprised, and actually pleasantly surprised by some of the statistics they put in their annual report. They connected with an average of 5 athletes a day. 5 athletes a day, 365 days. You do the quick math. They positively impacted 778,743 underserved children. Tangible, quantifiable results, and underserved children at that. And so if you think about underserved children, what that really means, that means whether it's nutrition, education, health, shelter, all the above, much more, they're underserved. And so if just one of those areas are uplifted by the support of these programs, that goes a long way to ensuring the positive life experience for that youth, as well as them being a positive part of society and maybe reaching back and doing the same thing for somebody else. So I thought that was an amazing number, 778,743. The last one is they served 32 communities. Again, tangible, quantifiable impact on 32 communities. Now, you may think that number is low. I challenge you to go out and do something that provides contact, support, serves 32 communities. And if you can, congratulations. That's 64 we got now. Let's do more. But I think 32 communities, 778,743. Very quick math, that's about 2,000 or so. About 2,000, 200,000. No, 2,000. 2,000 people or children per community. If my math is wrong, don't hold it against me. But one thing I am passionate about is paying it forward. I think you have to know that about me by now, whether you're a friend, foe, or just podcast listener or viewer. The thing I most loved about reading that report is the last page of their annual report, they had a tagline. The tagline was this, and it really put the in GRIN for me. And to go over it again, great reason to be in love with now. So it really put the in GRIN for me. That tagline said, get involved, be inspired. If that doesn't get you motivated to do something to make next year's annual report better. And I'm speaking, see, this is something I would say if I was on that board. That tagline would get me motivated to make sure 2023's annual report is even better. That we impact more than 778,000 people. That we go over 32 communities served. That we connect with more than just 5 athletes a day. Let's double it. Get involved, be inspired. Check out Athletes for Hope at www.athletesforhope.org. I want to thank Marc Paisant for stepping in Dave's head. And I don't know about you, I thought I heard a lot of great gems. And like he said, like I said, another topic for another day. I would definitely have him on again to talk about some other good stuff. Best wishes to him with his podcasts, plural, and also the daily fight of mental health. Every day, learn, every day, adapt, every day, get better. His website is www.isacertifiedtrainer.com. You can also find him on Instagram at Paisant Fitness, and also his podcast website, Relatively Normal Podcast. Find him on Instagram. You also find him on LinkedIn. Look up his name, Marc with a C, Paisant, Paisant. Support our sponsors, Digga Movers, for all your safe, swift, and local long-distance moving needs. Check them out at www.diggamovers.com. And SRE Solutions, Inc. for all your PC support, website design, network infrastructure, blah, 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 all that stuff, anything and everything you need around PC support, IT infrastructure. Check them out at www.sresolutions.org. And if you're interested in sponsoring on Dave's Head, reach out to me on any of my social media and we'll make it happen. So Uncle Dave, therapy, and hope. All great reasons to be in love with now. That's all for this episode of Dave's Head. New episodes released on the second and fourth Friday of the month. For all things Dave's Head, check out our website at daveshead.card.co. Subscribe to watch new episodes on YouTube or Spotify video, or to listen via your preferred podcast player, go to anchor.fm/Dave's Head Pod. Thank you for watching or listening. As always, enjoy life, because life should be fun. Take care.